Hey everybody, welcome. This is Cari and my co-host Brad. Hi Brad, can you say hi Brad? What do you guys think of our new intro?
Hello, everyone.
Pretty cool, huh? That was Brad's creativity, and also the application that we're using finally lets us put an intro at the beginning, so we are getting there. Anyway, today we have a pretty exciting lineup. And I say that because we are supposed to be having Don from a D&D Performance as our transmission expert on. He has not shown up yet, so we're having a little bit of technical difficulty. But Brad, you and I have a plan, don't we?
Yeah, we always have a plan.
So we have another special guest. And the special guest, many of you may know, is, welcome, Rich Cottrell. So many of you, if you're fans of Kenny Brown, you may have talked to him at one or twice and maybe met him at some of our events. He is our special guest today, and we are going to be sharing some said special way too many times. But anyway, we're going to share some special memories of Kenny and also find out a little bit more about Rich Cottrell and his background. So Rich, how long have you been with Kenny Brown?
So I've been with us for 22 years now. Yeah, it's 22. So I started the week of 9/11. And so I started on Monday, and then 9/11 happened, and then the phones went silent. So it was one of those decisions where you were kind of thinking, wow, what's going to happen now? So, but been with them ever since. So
you can sit a little bit closer, Rich. We've known each other long enough. Get you in the camera there. Okay, I'll move over this way. There. How's that?
That works. Yeah.
So anyway, Rich has been with us for over 20 years, and next to me, I think, well, Brad's been with us forever too. I don't know who has the longest term.
I think Brad beats me as far as how long he's been here. So.
Okay. So anyway, Brad started before Rich did, and so we have a good long-term staff, and we have more people, obviously, but we're going to try to be introducing some people that work on Team Kenny Brown, so you get to know who's behind the whole company as we move forward without Kenny. And so Rich is one. With last time we interviewed Brad Grissom, and now we are taking care of Mr. Rich. So Rich, what else would you like to share? What was your first impressions then when you first came to Kenny Brown?
So when I first started, I had worked on cars prior and had a little knowledge as far as the suspension, but that was probably the biggest adventure, was learning suspension from Kenny and the reasons behind the design. So those were pretty interesting, and it was a good time to learn. We had plenty of staff, so I kind of integrated in and was able to learn and pick up as far as Kenny's process on how he set up a car.
So yeah, so I mean, it's been wonderful having him here. I want to. We have a few people that have commented. Make sure if you're in the room that you are commenting, so we can see that you're here. Let's start here. We have Joe Johnson. Joe's been with us for a long time. He's one of the Speed Therapy Academy people. Jordan Dunning is here from Thailand. Wow, that is incredible. Welcome. Brian West. We know Brian very well. He has a lot of Kenny Brown stuff done to his car and is also Speed Therapy Academy. Rory Merrick, you're here quite a bit from Ridge, BC, Canada, which is wonderful. British Columbia. Steve Smith from Colorado, we know you as well. My goodness, we know most of these people here. Jorge, you're obviously on here quite a bit, from New Jersey. Brian K. Do you want to read that name?
Oh, Mr. Fred Francher from Louisville, Kentucky. So good morning, Fred.
And we also have
Dylan Calkins.
Dylan Calkins is with us, and we also have a special guest, Lance from Fox Body FX. In fact, Lance, if you want to come on, we can have you share a little bit about your program. I will have Brad try to contact you throughout the show if you're interested in coming on just for a few minutes and sharing what you're doing. Well, I will share a little bit, Lance, about what you do. Lance had a barn find about a year ago founder of Fox, and I don't know a lot of details on it, but he can tell you. And he decided to start putting some things on Instagram about his barn find and his refurbishing it, kind of restoring it to where it was, the glory. And all of a sudden, he got more and more people interested. And he decided to make a little bit of a business out of it. It's more of a passion, I think, than it's a true business, but it's more of a passion for him. And he has grown his Instagram channel from 0 to about, I think it's 33,000 people. We are going to be doing some things on our Fox Body program with him as we go forward. So it looks like a kid's at hockey game right now. Thanks, though. Just watching for now. Okay, Lance, well, I'll keep talking about you. I'll share everything I know. So anyway, Lance and Kenny Brown are going to be doing some things on the Fox Body because if you've been tuning in for a while, you know that we're building tribute cars. And the tribute cars are from every generation of Mustang that Kenny's built. And we're taking, like for the Fox Body, his iconic car then was the Outlaw XS. So we're building a couple of tribute Outlaw XS cars. In the S197 range, we have the GT4 RS, which we fondly refer to as Ruby. We have 1 and possibly 2 going out as those iconic tribute cars. So if you're interested in building a tribute car, a Kenny Brown tribute car, just let us know. Obviously, we have an S550 tribute car, and we're also doing Cobra tribute cars for the SN95.
The Fox Body, actually, we're in the process of getting, the parts are showing up pretty much daily now. So we're getting ready to get started on Brian's XS. And so that one will be coming in shortly as soon as all the parts get here, and we'll get started on that. But on a daily basis, the parts are coming.
Yep. And it's, as many of you know, if you've been buying automotive parts throughout the last few years, some parts are difficult. Sometimes it's a little widget that's missing. So anyway, what I think we're going to do is we're going to keep talking to Rich, asking him some questions. But if you have questions for Rich, just throw them online, and we'll have Rich answer them. I'd love to have you throw him some really tough questions too. So that would be interesting. Rich knows a lot about the Kenny Brown products since he's been with us for so long. And let's see, we have from Buffalo, New York, Facebook user. I have a feeling that may be Jay. Jay may be watching. We also, Roy Merrick is here. He is Fox Body. Cool. There's just so much going on. Oh, Sal is there. Good to see you and healthy again, Carrie. Yes, it's very good to be healthy. So it's been a long year, but we're back to normal and rocking and rolling. So, Rich.
Okay.
Tell me about where you worked before Kenny Brown and what it was referred to. I think it was an omen that you worked for Kenny Brown.
So my early years, I was working at KB Toys, and so spent about 15, 16 years at, that's nice, Brian. So spent 15 years with KB Toys. And so when I applied with Kenny Brown Performance, Kenny kind of felt that it was my education for working with toys, and the Kenny Brown KB Performance seemed to roll right into place. And so as me and Ken talked, he went online and actually was Googling to see what our KB Toys was about, and found that philosophies were actually pretty similar to what he had thought and how he wanted to run his company. And so it seemed to be kind of a match that was made. And so it took about 2 weeks, and I was sitting at a desk. And so that was kind of
9/11.
Right after 9/11. So it was kind of an interesting transition per se. But yeah, from KB Toys to KB Performance, it didn't take much to make that move. So,
and what was interesting about what Rich actually, do you think KB Toys? Well, that's kind of cool. But what he did is he went around. I can't remember how many stores do you have.
When I first started with them, they had 67 stores. I worked at the one here in Indianapolis, and when I left, we had 1,100 stores around the country, and they were building one in Puerto Rico, and so they were stepping out a little further. So I traveled around the country opening up stores. So I probably myself opened up over 200 stores through my time span with KB Toys.
Yeah, and so that's what he did, travel around the country and open up all these stores and whatever. Our showroom always looks spectacular because he knows how to set things up. So anyway, so that's a little bit about Rich's background. But we're going to answer Brian Westquist. First of all, for those of you that are just joining us, we had a little bit of a technical glitch, and our guest for today, Don from D&D Performance, he's our transmission expert who's going to talk transmissions today. For some reason, we're not connecting with him, so we are interviewing Rich Cottrell from our staff. If any of you have called in, you've probably spoken to him, or if you have a long-term relationship with him, you probably spoke to him at some point. Brad is going to be playing a Kenny Brown video shortly, and we'll find out what Kenny's going to talk about. But Brian West asked Rich, what's the scariest customer ride you've been on?
Okay, so we had a 01 Cobra. Well, actually, we had a customer that decided he wanted to do a suspension upgrade on his 01 Cobra. And so he, in the process, wanted to add a supercharger to it. So Kenny told him the only way that he was going to put a supercharger on it was to do the full suspension. So we actually did a serialized car for him. And it turned out to be a very nice car. We did all the IRS suspension upgrades, the K-member, all the chassis support. So, and then after that was all in place, then Kenny agreed to the supercharger. So the weekend of the Indy 500, he decided he was going to be in town, so he wanted to pick up his car then. So we took it for a test ride. And since we were on the west side of Indianapolis, he decided he wanted to jump on 465. And so this is the weekend of Indy 500, which meant considerable more traffic and considerable more cops. And so instead of blending in with the traffic, he decided to use the cars as rolling chicanes. And we probably topped in at about 135 on the interstate in a test drive with a brand new car setup. So that one probably warrants the scariest ride with a customer. Most guys are a little aggressive, I guess, when they go out and trying to fill out the car and stuff. But this one, I think he pretty much took it over the top because he took an interesting situation and made it much more interesting. So 135 miles an hour and Indy 500 traffic was, something close to a Fast and Furious movie. So
that kind of reminds me, and it really doesn't have a connection, but I'm going to share this story because I think it's pretty interesting. We used to build a lot of development cars for Ford. And years ago, I think this might have even been before you, we were building I think it was a Cobra, for John Coletti. We were building a car for John Coletti. And Kenny was out test driving it, and I was in the car. And when you have a car for Ford, you really don't have, like, the title and everything you need to have in your glove compartment. So, not the title, but, the information. So anyway, Kenny got pulled over for some, he wouldn't say aggressive driving. What would he use that term? Spirited driving. So he got pulled over by the cop, and the cop was not real happy. And he wasn't going that fast. But anyway, he got pulled over, and the guy said, well, let me see your registration and all that stuff. He goes, whose car's registered to? His Ford Motor Company. Oh, you were just messing with me. And he got really angry. And so we pulled the registration out, and what he found is the car was registered to Ford Motor Company. So that was kind of fun. We kind of put him in his place, I guess, a little bit. Kenny did not get a ticket. I can't believe it, but he did not get a ticket. So that was wonderful. Go ahead.
There's a number of times he should have, but anyway, so Ken managed to work his way out of a lot of the tickets. He around the shop at that point in time, Ken was known for test driving and dialing in a car on Lyndhurst, which was run straight into the speedway, and he'd been known for triple digits from time to time with the test drive. So one time he come flying into the shop and rolled down the window and said, drop the door. And so it wasn't too long after that we saw the cops driving around trying to find Ken, and he was out in Kermit, I think, at that time, doing the dial-in on Kermit. So, yeah, he come flying in and dropped the door, and we watched them drive by and trying to figure out where we went to. So anyway.
Well, I am going to share my scariest car ride with somebody, and it was with Ken. And I will tell you what it was. It was fantastic after it was over with. But it was when we were in Chicago, and we didn't have Kermie anymore. And Kermie just happened to show up at this car show, and it was all these classic cars. They were beautiful, beautiful. I was lined up in front of this business, and there was one spot at the very front of the building that there was one spot. Okay, so I don't know if I can explain this well enough. So we went out and we're driving Kermie. He loved Kermie. I think that was one of his most favorite cars that he drove because he spent so many miles in it, giving people rides on track, and then he just loved the way it handled and performed. So anyway, we went out and drove around, and we were having fun. He was being spirited, and he came back in, and I should probably draw a picture, but anyway, you have to go around a median and then around here, and then there's this one spot that you can pull into right here. So anyway, he had to come like this and go like that. So anyway, I'm thinking we're just pulling in because there's this car show and there's these gorgeous cars. He comes flying in, goes around the median, and boom, and backs like right into the car, and people are just like, oh.
Didn't back in, he slid in.
Yes, he slid in.
Slid into the parking space.
Yes, yeah.
So
were you there? Did you see that?
Yeah. He put everybody on edge, and then
nobody appreciated it.
Yeah, backed the car in, got out, stepped away just like it was pretty much normal. But
it was incredible car control. I knew he had great car control, but this was just incredible. I wish I would have had a video of it. I'm just in and out, and it was just phenomenal. I was just amazed. So that was my scariest ride, but also the most fantastic ride I had because I could not believe the car control. But getting out of the car was a little embarrassing. People did not appreciate what he did. So anyway,
he enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think he's used to being around more track day cars and people that like spirited racing. These were definitely people that didn't take their car out.
Show and shine.
Yeah. So, but anyway, enough about that. Do we have any other questions for Brad or Rich or for Brad? I see you're on.
Yeah. So, well, I saw that Calvin Goring was on here. Let's go back to the other layout.
Okay.
So we can see Rich. I saw that Calvin Goring was on here. So I had a question for Rich. Did you ever drive the Lounge Lizard around town with the red lights on to clear traffic ahead of you?
Oh my goodness.
I didn't get the opportunity for the Lounge Lizard. That was actually just before my time.
Okay.
So
Ken's Crown Vic. I mean, we had a number of times out with the Crown Vic. Bill Carroll, when we did his supercharged his Marauder, we went out and probably wasted about half of a set of tires out with his supercharged Marauder when he picked it up. And so that one was, I think, once people saw essentially the Crown Vic body style, they kind of had a tendency to move off to the side. And the fact that we were probably not quite twice the posted probably give us a little bit of an advantage. But yeah, I didn't get a chance to ride it with lights and siren in the Lounge Lizard.
So we're going to share a little bit about Calvin, but I wanted in his experience with Brad on that. But I just wanted, for people that are joining us a little bit late or just coming in, we were supposed to have Don from D&D Performance on. We're having a little technical difficulty, so we had to do a little ad lib. So we are interviewing Rich Cottrell from our staff, and also Brad Grissom will be adding some comments. We're just sharing some fun experiences of what it was like to work for Kenny Brown. And I will add, before Brad, you go into a little more experience with Calvin. So Kenny and I were like the mom and dad of the company because we owned it. And so there would be some shenanigans that would go on behind our back. And I'm just finding out some of them right now. So anyway, Brad, you want to share a little bit more?
Well, I just I saw Calvin had jumped on, and since Rich was talking, I just wanted to ask him the question if he had ever driven around Indy with the lights on the Lounge Lizard, which was the glorified cop car that we built for, I think it was Car and Driver magazine. But so Calvin used to do that. He used to drive around town, Indianapolis, and clear traffic. He'd flip the lights on in the car. I think the first time he did that, he was picking it up from the transmission shop. We'd taken it to the transmission shop to have some work done on it. And Calvin hopped in the car to bring it back to the shop, and immediately went into full-blown police car mode and cleared traffic, needless to say, on the way there. And, you know, it was cool, Rich, that you had mentioned Bill Caro's car. I don't know if you remember the license plate he had on the car. It was a customized.
Mensoria.
Yeah. And so you know what that term means. Can you tell us?
It's a legal term. I forgot
I believe that it's with intent.
With intent. Yeah.
With intent. Yeah.
Right. And that
so,
was that's what he called it. That's what he called the car, was Mensoria.
Yeah. So. And so I remember that Ken and Cari and I were going to Atlanta for the Pirelli every year does a big ride and drive event at the time they did it at Road Atlanta. And Pirelli was a big sponsor of ours, and they wanted to have one of the Marauders on display at the racetrack for that weekend. They were doing a big media event and a new product launch. And we had to load the car up with all of this stuff. Of course, we have to take a lot of stuff with us everywhere we go. And so I had to be in Atlanta by the end of the day, and we left really late, of course, because of all the stuff we had to put in the car, and the trunk was full all the way to the top.
But what did Kenny say about that trunk? He always said it was a 5.
He said that you could fit 5 dead bodies in the trunk.
Mm-hmm.
Depends on how you stacked them, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you more about that in a minute. So needless to say, Atlanta was a 10 to 12 hour drive from Indianapolis. I had changed my route intentionally so I could at least cut an hour off of that. So when I left Indy, I took 74 to Cincinnati, and then I jumped on 75 to take that all the way to Atlanta versus the normal way, which is down 65 and through Nashville and then way through the mountains. Which was a little bit longer drive, but a little bit more fun drive. So needless to say, I was in haul ass mode because I was limited on time. We weren't going to be able to stop and do anything. We had to just get to Atlanta as fast as we could. So I had just come through Cincinnati. I was crossing the bridge over into Kentucky. I was in the far left-hand lane, and I was doing a solid 90 miles an hour. And I look over on the right, and sure enough, sitting on the shoulder of the road, there's a Hazard County deputy sheriff, and he's running radar. And he locked in on me like you wouldn't believe. And so I was like, oh, shoot, here we go. And of course, my wife's in the car.
I'm sure you said shoot too, Brad.
Yeah. So my wife's in the car. And so I know I'm busted. I go ahead and make my way over to the right. And of course, at that point, he's on me. And so he pulls me over, and he very cautiously walks up to the car because the license plate's menacing. The car is menacing. And that car was actually just a few weeks before, it was on the cover of, I believe it was Car and Driver magazine.
Yes, Car and Driver magazine.
It was on the cover of Car and Driver magazine, and I think the police officer may have recognized the car, but dark tinted windows. And so he walked up to the car very cautiously, one hand on his pistol, and I rolled down the window, and he didn't really know what to say other than, can you step out of the car for me? Of course, I stepped out of the car, and he said, let's go back to my car and let's have a chat. And the first thing he says is that the car that was just on the cover of Car and Driver magazine? And I said, well, yeah, as a matter of fact, it was. And I'm thinking, okay, everything's going to go good here, because he seems to be pretty interested. He was kind of pissed, to say the least, because I was doing 90 and a 55. But still, nonetheless, he was pretty mesmerized with the car. And unbeknownst to me, he had called for backup, which I found out shortly later after I looked, sitting in his police car. I looked behind and I saw like 4 other sheriff cars pulling up, and I was like, oh boy, here we go. I'm going to jail for sure for this. And my wife sees the whole thing, and she's absolutely freaking out. I mean, she's sitting up there in the car by herself, and she's like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And so the other police officers show up, and they say, hey, can you show us the car? We want to see under the hood of the car. And so I said, yeah. And so we all walked up to the car. Kathy's still freaking out. I opened up the door, and she's like, what's going on? What's going on? I said, it's okay. Relax. I just want to see under the hood of the car. So pop the hood of the car. They're oohing and awing. And, of course, it's, a glorified police car, a hot rod police car, nonetheless. And so I show them the car, and then they said, well, let us see what's in the trunk. And so I pop open the trunk, and it's just overflowing, full of stuff. And they were like, oh my gosh. And I'm explaining to them how it has a special package tray in it and all of this. And they were like, wow, that trunk's really big. I didn't realize you could put that much stuff in the trunk. And I said, well, yeah, according to the guy who built it, you can fit 5 dead bodies in there. And their faces went completely blank. And they looked at me like, 5 dead bodies. And so they thought I had actually tried that, apparently. And so I closed the trunk, and we're all talking, and I get back in the police car, and the officer says, I tell you what, I'm going to do you a favor, since you're such a nice guy and you took a lot of valuable time out of your day to let us check out the car and tell us all about it. I'm going to write you up for 72 and a 55. That way I don't have to take you to jail. It's only going to be maybe a couple of points against your license. You're out of state. Who knows if it even transfers? You'll just have to pay a fine, and you can have a nice day. And so, but he said that's on one condition. He said, when you leave here, well, I'll turn the lights on. We'll make sure the traffic's clear. When you get out straight on the pavement, I want you to lay into the throttle and just do a big smoky burnout for us, okay? And I said, well, we're on the highway, but yeah, I'll go ahead and do that. So he turned his lights on. He kind of cleared traffic for me. I got out in the right-hand lane. I just laid into the throttle and just smoked the tires for probably 200, 300, 400, 500 feet, something like that. And we went on our way, and we made it to Atlanta by 6 o'clock. So we didn't really slow down. We just kept hauling ass the whole way there. But I was under strict orders from Kenny. I'll have you all know that I needed to be in Atlanta by 6 o'clock no matter what. And so I did my job. I did it well. And he didn't pay the ticket. So I had to actually pay the fine.
Well, I don't know if you told him about the ticket. I
thought, I could turn that in as an expense for sure. And that's believable.
Yeah, but then you have to explain yourself to Kenny.
Yeah. That didn't work out so well for me. I had to explain that to Kenny, and $115 out of my pocket for doing what I was instructed to do by my boss.
Oh yeah,
I don't think that's fair. Maybe I can try to turn that back in as an expense now that Carrie's running the show. So somehow I don't.
Probably made up for the times you didn't get caught. So
yeah. I don't think that's going to work. That's probably the stupidest thing that I ever did in a Kenny Brown car, by far and away. Maybe not. What's the stupidest thing I ever did and got caught for? But at least, and I used to drive the Lounge Lizard around town with the red lights on too. If I was in traffic or I was stuck somewhere, I'd flip those lights on and I'd get everybody out of my way. And that was a super fun car to drive. It had like loudspeakers and sirens and lights, and it was legit.
That was one thing that Kenny instructed us never to do. Always drive, you can drive a little faster than the speed limit, but not much. Drive safe, and never put those lights on, Brad. I knew that. So
Yeah.
good things Kenny's
Well-
not around to hear your stories right now.
Well,
I want to break.
Calvin started that trend, so it's not really my fault. He was the main instigator.
Okay, well, I want to break just for a minute for those of you that are joining us and looking for our transmission tech. We had a little bit of a technical difficulty, and we will be having Donnie on another time. So look for him. I don't know if it'll be next week. Next week, we're supposed to have Scott Hogue from MRT, who is going to share some tech on some exhaust. He's an exhaust expert, so he'll be sharing that. He has a number of other really cool stories. So either be Donnie or our MRT will be on next week. So if you want to stay connected with us, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, click the like and click the little bell, and you'll be getting a little information telling you when we're on and what's happening, so you can join us. For those of you that are new to us, we're on every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for about an hour, and we go from running little encore presentations that Kenny shared to having live experts on. So we have one question here, Brad, I thought we should answer. And this is from Lance from Fox Betty FX. If I talked about him a little bit earlier, you need to check out. He also has a podcast. I don't have that information in front of me, but if you go to his Instagram channel or his Facebook page, you will find information on his Fox Body FX. It's very interesting. Has some really cool cars that he shows, and his podcasts are extremely interesting too. Really good guy. His question is, and I'm not sure if Brad or Rich should answer this, so I'll read it, and then one of you can chime in, or both of you.
Is this the question from Lance?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so that's a good question. Let's have Rich answer that.
Okay, for street and track use, what is recommended for pads? Do you recommend changing pads on the Kenny Brown brake setup? I know Kenny talked about brake temps and wanted very different pads for track use.
So we actually, we use G-Lock pads, and that's our go-to pad for the brake kits. So yes, you want to have a specific pad for when you're on track, and there's a number of reasons why you would do that. Number one is if you're driving to the track and you're going to be on the street, you want a pad that has the initial bite at a temperature that is right around ambient temperature. So most street pads will actually function well from 0 to probably 500 or 600 degrees. But the problem with street pads is once you exceed that, then the binding material in the pads is going to start diminishing, and your pads will actually go away very quickly. So you're with the street pads, you're not going to have the temperature range that you're going to need for when you're out on track. So we always suggest that if you're driving to the track, that you show up or you drive with street pads, but when you get to the track, that you make the pad change and put your track pads on. And the track pads, depending on where you're running and how hard you're using the brakes, can run anywhere from 900 to sometimes 1,500 degrees. And so you definitely don't want to be out there with a set of street pads at 1,000 degrees, 1,100 degrees, because they will just essentially just deteriorate real quickly and turn to dust. So, but also with track pads, you don't want to take track pads and try and drive on the street, because they don't actually start taking effect until they over 100 degrees. And so your initial bite is going to be much later as far as for braking.
So what I'm going to do, since it's pretty related, reach behind you, Rich.
This actually is the way to know what your temperature is. So we actually sell temperature paint.
I'll open it up.
And inside of it, it actually has a guide for what your temperature ranges are. So as the heat increases on the rotors, it will also show up on the temperatures here as far as the color. So when you paint it on, you go out on track, and whatever color it is, and it's very specific, will give you your peak temperature range. And then what you want to do is have pads that exceed your peak temperature range. And this is the best way to know where you're at as far as rotor temperatures, so that you have the correct pads that are going to function and work well for you. So
Here's so you know what I'm thinking? Guys, what do you think if we have this as our giveaway for today? I think that sounds like a good plan.
sounds like a plan.
Okay, so in order to get this rotor temp paint, why don't you go on and subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the little like button, and then come back and comment that you're subscribed to Kenny Brown YouTube channel, and then we will choose somebody from that list, and I'll have Rich I'll tell him in a few minutes how to choose the name who wins at the end of the show, and somebody will be winning that rotor paint. So it's a really cool thing to have too. You'll love it. We sell a lot of that rotor paint. So
Yeah, so I just had one thing to add about the brake pads. If anybody has any questions about pads, compounds, things of that nature, if you go to our website and you look at the G-Lock brake pads we offer for the various different, we sell them based on the caliper, basically, or the vehicle application. The live axle may be different than IRS for the SN95 cars. So Rich is really well educated on all of that. He's well educated on the temperature ranges for the different pads that we offer. We list what the temperature ranges are for the pads that we offer. So, you know, if you want to talk to Rich, or you want to talk even to myself, you can schedule a 15-minute consultation, and we'll sort of guide you through the process for choosing the best pad for your car, so that you can, because pad, the amount of dust that the pad generates, the amount of rotor wear that the pad generates. Rich talked about the temperature ranges for how the pads work. That's really important. There are some track pads that you could, in theory, or you could drive on the street, but you need to be very cognizant of that temperature range. When you get into a track pad, they tend to make a little bit more noise. Sometimes you'll get a little bit more dust. Sometimes you'll get a little bit of rotor wear as a result of that. So Rich is a great resource to help guide you through your choices. And then we also have a couple of other questions, Carrie. I didn't know if you wanted to continue reading.
yeah, let's go that.
Dylan,
So anybody,
two great questions.
yeah, if anybody has any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. Joe Johnson just commented that I love a brake pad that is progressive. A pad that is too aggressive is not really good on track. And that is so true. Oh, Bob Jones is here too. Good. And let's see. That is so cool. Joseph Volotsky. I'm not even going to pronounce your name, but you may be the winner. Let's see. Dylan subscribed. Joseph subscribed to win that rotor paint. Let's see. Rory has. That's good. We'll check those names, and we will have a way of you winning at the end of the show. So we'll watch for that. We have a couple more questions here, and there's this one I'm going to answer. Dylan asked, also, I was wondering how you choose who can. Oh, that's not the one. I wanted to do the one before. I have a couple of questions. I was wondering how much effort goes into the little things, like how you choose what color to powder coat your parts. I think everybody on staff knows how that goes into effect. So first of all, in order to choose a powder coating, we look at the durability of it, how long it's going to last, because we want a powder coating to last. Powder coating doesn't always, the life expectancy at some point will start to degrade, but we look at a really long life expectancy and look at just different variables on that. But in order to come up with the color,
Carrie picks the colors.
I pick the colors. So, and yeah, I picked the colors. So I'll give you a little example of me picking colors versus somebody else in the company. So years ago, this is back when yellow hats were in. They were the hottest ticket around. This guy right here loves blue. So he thought blue hats were going to sell. I said, okay, well, let's make a contest out of it. You choose blue hats, we'll bring blue and the yellow hats into the mix along with other hats, and we'll see what sells the best.
Carry one.
Yellow Hats sold probably 20-1.
20-1.
So
Yeah, the Yellow Hats win.
So anyway, I choose all the colors. So, and I do a lot of the graphics on the cars too, Kenny, and I kind of work together on that, and we sign up on that. So the other thing that I do now that Kenny's no longer here is I have final sign off on how the cars that leave here. We always set them up and make them perform ideally, and because I've done so much testing with him, final sign off on the cars that I do final sign off on the cars and how they handle and how they will change. Yeah, how they feel. We'll change and tweak a little bit each car that goes out of here. Obviously, I have support from our staff, but I kind of have final sign off on that just because I've done it so long with him that I kind of know the feel that he's looking for. So what's interesting, and I'll add this comment and then we'll answer some more questions here, is it's kind of obviously really overwhelming when Kenny passed. We didn't know how we're going to go forward, and we wanted, all of us are motivated, still are, to go forward without Kenny and carry on his legacy, because we know that's what he would have wanted us to do. And I was a little concerned. I thought, okay, how are we going to fill his gap? Well, obviously nobody's ever going to fill his gap because he was brilliant at what he did, but he trained all of us so well, and we all know so much. We're able to kind of, maybe not one person answer it, but we kind of get together as a group and answer the questions as Kenny would. And plus, he left a ton of resources for us. He has so many things in writing that is unbelievable, that are resources for us. If anybody took his Speed Therapy Academy course, or one of the alumni, there's a lot of resources available. So anyway, that's off a little bit, but kind of like to talk about him a little bit. Okay, we have a couple more questions. Dylan also he says, I was wondering how you choose who can have their car built into a tribute car. I love to have my SN95 built, but I'll have to save up for a few months. Oh, Dylan, you're so sweet. So
as far as it's not so much a choice. I mean, we're looking at moving the tribute cars forward. The cars were iconic at the time they were built, and so it's not a pick and choose. Dylan, if you have an interest in doing a tribute car, we definitely have an interest in working with you as far as putting the package together. The Fox bodies right now, for some reason, just seem to overnight just blow up as far as interest. So we have a number of people that are looking at the Fox body upgrades, but we also have a car in-house right now that's building a Ruby tribute car.
We have another Ruby tribute car coming too as soon as I get that.
And so there's a number of those, and Tim's actually doing his in Ruby red because he wanted essentially the same car that Kenny had with all the new and the modern upgrades. So that it's going to have a K-Link on it. It will have the Pro 4R brake kit. It'll have all the updates that Ken's worked on over the years. So not only are they going to have the tribute pieces, but they're also going to have the latest, greatest, essentially, as far as suspension geometry and parts that we can put together. And so, yeah.
So that's a really cool project. We're all very excited about this. We will be having more information on the tribute cars on the website after the first of the year. And we're still pretty overwhelmed with kind of transitioning from Kenny to us running the company. So we have a lot of things in the works, but tribute cars should be on the website. We can order them now, but we'll publicly be announcing them after the first of the year. The other thing that we're working on right now is our goal is by Black Friday, we are going to have a lot of different apparel items, a lot of T-shirts to commemorate Kenny, like some of his sayings, smooth is good. First, what is it?
Fast in, fast, slow in, fast out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, just a whole bunch of his little sayings that we're going to have, and we'll have some other commemorative items as well. So look for that on Black Friday through the holiday season. So, and continuing on. So Brad, go ahead.
Yep, I've got a question for Rich. This leads up to another question from a viewer. Do we have a brake rotor handy that you could grab?
Sure.
Okay. And so we had a question from a viewer that's a good question that is related to the brake temperature paint, and we'll get into that in a second whenever Rich grabs our prop. I guess we're going to call it a prop.
It's right here. It was actually.
And since we're talking about brakes, Joe Johnson had a great comment. He loves a brake pad that is progressive. A pad that is not too aggressive is not really good on the track. And so there's two schools of thought, and the type of pad, the compound that you choose, and the like of the pedal feel that you like is preference. So in my case, I like a pad that is really aggressive. When I tip in to the brake pedal itself, I want all of it to be there. I modulate the brake using my foot. Some people like to get aggressive on the brake and really hammer on it pretty hard. And in that case, you'll want something that's a little bit more progressive or forgiving at tip in. And so that leads us into the next question, since Rich has the brake rotor, our prop now. I think it was, let's see, it was, I believe it was Dylan, maybe. Somebody had the question of how do you apply the rotor temp to the paint? And so Rich is going to show us that right now.
And you can actually, it goes on the end of the, it goes on the edge of the rotor. And so that way, as the rotor gets hot, it will actually change the color in the temp paint. And so that's how you'd be able to see it. And then this way, you don't have to worry about painting the surface. You don't want to get anything on the surface, but this will actually change color due to the temperature of the rotor. And, you know, if you're on track and you're running, I mean, these rotors will actually glow red. And so the temperature is pretty excessive, but you want to know where you're at as far as the temperature, so that your pads aren't over aggressive, but they're working within your temperature range that you're driving at.
Hey, Brad, can you put a link up from our website on there, so if people are interested in buying the rotor paint, they can just click a link, don't have to look for it?
Yeah, I'll see if I can get that posted up for you. Here's a tech tip on the rotors. Rich mentioned that, you know, you'll see, particularly in race cars, if you're watching, you know, at Daytona or Sebring or Watkins Glen, when a car is under heavy braking, you'll see the rotors glow red, and it's a little bit misleading, because you think that the rotors are so hot that they're glowing red, but the red color and the glowing actually comes from the friction material on the rotor itself. And so one thing that a lot of people don't know is that there's a thin layer between the brake pad and the rotor itself that is actually viscous material. And so that's actually liquid. And that's what is actually glowing, is the material that is on the outside of the brake rotor itself is incredibly hot. And so that's why you see them glow. It's not per se the rotor is so hot that it's physically glowing a red color. So just an interesting tidbit of information there. And so, Rich, we do have some other questions. Carrie, do you want to go ahead and get into some other questions?
Sure. We'll get into it. Go ahead.
Yeah. Jordan has a great question that Rich would be perfect to answer.
Okay. So let's see. I need to go back to Dylan. Bob Jones, good to see you here. A lot of people are subscribing on YouTube and liking it. We appreciate that. And make sure you put your name in the comments and tell us you did that. So, or if you're already subscribed, so you can have an opportunity to win the rotor temperature paint. We'll be announcing the winner in 10 minutes. Let's see.
Okay.
Where's the next question here?
You want me to read the question?
Yeah, okay, got it. Will the upgraded geometry IRS iCarrier work with the factory control arms, and then able to upgrade the arms later, or does it need to be done together?
So the geometry change on the IRS carrier, you really need to do the arms with it, just because it's a pretty substantial change in the upper arms. And the problem you could get into is at The furthest point is you could contact the carrier with the arms. It's probably at a point most people would never encounter, but if you're looking at full range of motion, the arms can touch the carrier. So as far as the factory arms, because they're actually designed a little different. And Ken's design on the upper arms was built around getting the most clearance and then also clearing the frame rail, because as they move up, you're going to be getting very close to the frame rail. So in a full range of motion, yes, you would need to do the upper arms. If you're doing coilovers on the car, you're going to have to change the lowers anyway, just because, or if you're doing our coilovers are spherical bearings that are mounted on the control arms and double shear. Ken was never fond of the pin where the shock's mounted, and that design from factory was never intended to carry the weight, half the weight of the car. And so he was never comfortable with the idea of mounting coilover shocks in single shear.
We have a couple more questions. But before we go there, Lance, if you're still with us, can you please add some of the links to your social media channels and tell us how to get to your podcast? Can you just put that in the comments? I think a lot of people that are into Fox Buddies would love to connect up to you. So if you have that, if you're still here, please put that in the comments so people can add that. Also, if you're with us, next week we are having was it MRT?
MRT, Scott Hogue.
Scott Hogue from MRT, and he's going to be talking about exhaust tech. So it'll be really good. We will be having Don from D&D Performance on again in a coming week. So we'll make sure we post that on our Facebook page. And if you subscribe to our newsletter, you will get that information there. We always put who is going to be on the Cars and Coffee show on our newsletter. So Brad, if you can put in the comments the link to subscribe to the newsletter, that'd be great. If you don't see it in there and you want to subscribe later, it's on the bottom of our homepage on our website. So make sure you subscribe to that and you'll get all the latest information. Okay, so the next question we have here, first of all, Fred Francher, I need to read your comment. You did a great job setting my car up, Cari. Thank you so much, Fred. It was an honor, and it was very interesting because, you know, it was really cool, and that we were able to do it, and you know, we did Kenny proud, I think. So thank you. So next one is from Mike Bullen. Oh no, Rory.
Actually, we skipped one. Rory has a good question for Rich as well about the IRS knuckles and the cross-axis joints. Rich, can you enlighten us there?
We have not found a way to upgrade the 99 knuckles. We have not done that. Probably be something I could do some research and see what would be involved in upgrading the knuckles from the 99. I know they're a little more plentiful right now than 03, 04 Cobra ones are. But it would be something we'd have to research and take a look at.
Okay, we have a few more minutes if you want to win the brake rotor paint that we talked about earlier. Make sure you go onto YouTube and subscribe and like, and then we will be announcing the winner. Rich will be picking the winner at exactly 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So we'll
11 o'clock.
Oh, 11 o'clock. Oh, I guess, yeah, you don't want to stay here another hour, do you? Well, maybe you do. We're having so much fun. I wouldn't mind. Okay, Mike Bullen. I recently watched the K-Link launch video and wanted to say it is super interesting. My question is have you done any comparisons with the torque arm panel bar setup? And if so, how does it compare?
Okay, so we don't use a torque arm. Ken's not been a fan of the torque arm based off of the weight and the geometry as far as the torque arm. So as far as a side-by-side comparison on the two cars, I guess we'll find out more about that as our guys are on track and see just exactly how well they hold up. I know I've got one customer, Ricky Medell. he has documentation that shows that from stock to K-Link, he took 11 seconds off of his car as far as his best time on the same track. So 11 seconds is pretty substantial with the K-Link. The side value in the K-Link was that his tires now wear evenly and his temperatures are pretty much, once he gets the air pressure dialed in, pretty much level across the face of the tire. As far as the Panhard bar, yes, it is definitely an upgrade to the Panhard bar system because the K-Link separates axle roll and body roll. The Panhard bar will have its limitations as far as how much it'll articulate, but the K-Link actually allows the car to move much better and keep all four tires planted evenly on the pavement. So it is a documented change as far as the Panhard bar versus the K-Link. Now, our roll center kit, the value of the roll center kit is how far we can get the Panhard bar down. So a lot of people that go out with the Panhard bar are blown away by how well it works by getting the roll center down so low, because our Panhard bar runs along the bottom of the differential. So it's just right across the bolt pattern at the bottom. And so consequently, the changes in the roll center really makes the car stick in the back. So from stock to Panhard bar, our roll center kit is a substantial change. But then once you go from the Panhard bar to the K-Link, the roll center drops so much lower that it's day and night difference between them.
Yeah, what's interesting so the Panhard bar that he's rear roll center kit is our rear grip kit 1, and that's AGS 4.0. The K-Link is our rear grip kit 2, and that is our AGS, which is Advanced Geometry Suspension 4.5. And that Kenny was so proud of that thing, and he spent a lot of time developing it. And as far as testing and durability, we've had 2 hard years of racing, hard competitive racing on that, and without any issues whatsoever. So it's a really sturdy piece. It actually looks like jewelry too. So if you can imagine, that's sturdy and beautiful. So, and I did choose the color of the Panhard bars. So.
So I'll just a couple more things I want to add to that. So, there are substantial differences between the torque arm theory that a lot of people use and all the other theories that are out there. The biggest issue with the torque arm is it's heavy. There's some pretty strange anomalies that can happen at a really hard braking. It's a heavy, bulky piece that's designed to really help with traction and help with braking as well. So it does affect sort of the anti-lift, anti-dive theories in terms of just suspension dynamics itself. With that being said, we have a much more effective way of introducing a lot of anti-squat and a lot of anti-dive without the extra weight and other anomalies of the torque arm. We simply change the angle of the rear lower control arm where it attaches to the axle, and it gives you the same net effect with considerably less weight and no real downside to it at all. Commonly, when you're using a torque arm, you're going to be using a Watts link, and as Rich described earlier, you cannot get the roll center of a Watts link down very low. It's typically right in the center of the differential itself, and so the better way to do it is a Panhard bar, because you can get the roll center much lower, say toward the bottom of the differential. With the K-Link, it takes things to a whole new level because it allows you to set the roll center wherever you want. And so with the K-Link, you can set the roll center well below the differential, at the bottom of the differential. You can set it below ground if you want. And so the person who did the original testing and sort of proved the K-Link theory out, that's I think his name is Brian Carrick, if I'm not mistaken. Joe Johnson and a few of our other viewers who are from the Texas area, they know Brian pretty well. His car is fast, and I can tell you in terms of a comparison, he ran that car against plenty of torque arm Watts-Link cars, and I think Joe Johnson will confirm that Brian had by far and away one of the fastest cars on track, and torque arm Watts-Link cars were not a problem for Brian at all. So there have been some comparisons that have been done. We don't like to get too in depth with that because we don't use torque arms, so we're not going to do an in-house comparison probably ever. We let our customers and their competitors sort of speak for themselves. So that's just a quick tech tidbit there. And if any of you want to go on a YouTube channel, you can fish through some of our tech videos, and you'll see at least one or two tech videos where Ken kind of goes a little in depth and explains what the differences are between a torque arm and a traditional pan-hard bar type of suspension. And I think Jordan, you may, or not Jordan, but Mike, you may have watched the K-Link video, and Kenny talks a little bit in the video about the K-Link and some differences between that and other types of suspensions as well. So we will move on. Cari, we've got some other stuff out there. I think Rory has another question.
Yeah, Rory has a question, but I said at 11 o'clock we would announce the winner of the tire temperature paint.
Rotor paint.
Rotor paint. So let's see. I'm going to have Rich. I'm going to have you choose a number.
Number 6.
Number 6. Let's see who that is. So who won that rotor temperature paint? 2, 3, 4, 5. Steve Smith. Steve Smith, you are the winner. Steve, why don't you send info@kennybrown.com an email in case it's not the Steve Smith we think it is. And we will send us at info@kennybrown.com your name and your address and your phone number and email, and we will send this off to you. Congratulations. So we have a couple more questions here, and before everybody has to sign off, because I know like sometimes people only have an hour, make sure you come next week. We will be having MRT on talking about exhaust tech, and he has a pretty interesting story. He has a huge background with Ford. He was a Ford engineer and has a whole bunch of information with that. Also, we will be having Don from D&D Performance on. And Brad, I think I know why we had technical difficulties. I think the email was wrong. So anyway, we will be having Don on from D&D Performance talking about transmissions. Many of you have been asking about transmission information. Pay attention to our social media channels and also sign up for our newsletter, and you will find out when he will be on next. So we look forward to having him. It's going to be an awesome show. So Rory, does the serialized numbers on the parts benefit us? Yes.
Yes. So that we actually track and document production runs on our parts, and each part gets a serial number. We know purchase orders. We know when it was manufactured. And so it just helps us ensure that you guys get the best parts. But on the other side of it too is if you buy a part from somewhere and it's not serialized and they advertise it as a Kenny Brown part, I would question that, because every part that we send out is going to have a serialized number to it. And so we want to make sure that you guys are getting what you pay for. And so we're here to back that up with the serialized number. So it is in your benefit, yes. Mm-hmm. So
one of the things that Kenny did years and years ago is obviously 2 reasons Rich mentioned, but he wanted it to be, if you're older, look for the label, like, okay, you want to know if it's a genuine Kenny Brown product, here it is. And that's the serialized number on all the Kenny Brown manufactured products that we put out. And then again, it's just a good one of our quality control checks to make sure we know what lot it was built in, when it was built. And then what's really interesting is products sell after a while. Like somebody might have a Kenny Brown part in their car and sell their Mustang. Well, somebody else may pick it up and not know what it fits. So people can call in and give us their number, and we can tell them exactly what product it was and what it fits. So that's a side benefit to it. Okay, Joseph, thank you. A great show. We appreciate you. Hopefully you'll join us next week. Again, we're on every Saturday at 10 a.m. Some weeks we do an encore presentation where Kenny is teaching his tech and sharing his knowledge. And then sometimes we do live shows. We're going to be doing a number of live shows in a row here coming up. Again, next week is MRT talking about exhaust. And then we will be having Don from D&D Performance on again talking transmission tech. And we have a couple other people lined up too. We'll let you know as it goes on. Again, we appreciate you being here. Does anybody have anything else? This is your last call to ask a question or comment.
If you have another question, please put it in the comment section on the live shows. Cari mentioned we're going to have Scott Hogue from MRT. Scott's a former brand manager, release manager for Ford Motor Company, and he worked in the Mustang program for years. So you can almost do two shows with him, one where he's talking about his history with the Mustang, and then one where he's talking about his company MRT, which is a full service. We refer to them as an exhaust company, but they do so many more things besides exhaust. They're custom car builders. They're in the paint business. They do a lot of restoration work on older cars. That's really their specialty. A lot of different things. And then we are also going to have Lance from Fox Body FX on. He's an interesting character, and that's going to make for a great show as well. I think we have Danny from G-Lock Brakes, who is in the works to do a live show, hopefully this year. And we've got a few other guests lined up as well before the end of the year. So we do have a lot of exciting shows coming up. And I wanted to remind everybody, if you're viewing us on Facebook, be sure to hit the like button or give us one of those heart-shaped wrenches, as Kenny always referred to them. That sort of helps with Facebook's algorithm to help garner us a little bit more exposure. If Facebook thinks what you're talking about or your video is interesting, then they're obviously going to promote it more. For those of you who are joining on Facebook through the Kenny Brown Speed Therapy Society, now before we go live on that page, there's some basic instructions that'll navigate you through the process of giving StreamYard permission to see your name and your little handle icon so that we can see who you are. And last but not least, if you're viewing on YouTube, be sure to hit the thumbs up button. So that's basically the like button. But we also want you to hit the subscribe button as well. And once you hit the subscribe button, a little bell will show up next to it. And if you click on that bell, then you can choose to get a notification every time we go live. And so that's helpful because it'll send you a message, or if you log on to YouTube, then you'll get a notification through YouTube that tells you that we're going to go live and when we go live. And so that's important with YouTube as well, because again, the more people that like our video, the better the chance that YouTube is going to repurpose that on the homepage whenever you log on. So all of those little likes and those little insignificant things, they help us a lot. So Cari, back to you.
Well, that was very good, Brad. I appreciate you sharing that information. And again, give us some thumbs up. I see 11 right now. Let's have a few more. And how many people loved having Rich on the show with us this morning? So put a comment in if you want to see Rich on the show again. It was fun having him here. And it's always fun getting together as our little team. So anyway, we love seeing you. And we will see you next week. Scott Hogue from MRT Performance will be on with us. Take care and have a good week.
Goodbye, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye.